New Testament versus the Gospel of Judas. For 2,000 years, one name has been the ultimate symbol of a traitor: Judas Iscariot. His story is one of history's most infamous acts of betrayal, the disciple who sold out his master for 30 pieces of silver. It's a story we all think we know. But what if there was more to it? In the 1970s, a lost gospel was discovered in the Egyptian desert after being buried for nearly 1,700 years. And it tells a radically different story, one where Judas isn't a traitor, but the only disciple who truly understood Jesus. A story where his infamous betrayal was actually an act of supreme loyalty, a sacred mission given to him by Jesus himself. What if the man whose name is synonymous with betrayal was actually the hero of the story? What if everything we've been told is wrong? Section 1. The official story, Judas the villain. Before we get into the strange and fascinating alternative, let's quickly revisit the official version of Judas, the one we learned from the New Testament. In the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Judas Iscariot is one of the 12 chosen disciples, but he's consistently painted as the villain. The Gospel of Matthew is the most direct, claiming Judas was motivated by simple greed. It tells us he went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" They counted out 30 pieces of silver for him. In the end, drowned in remorse, he tries to return the money and tragically takes his own life. The Gospels of Luke and John add a supernatural twist. They don't just say Judas was greedy, they say that Satan entered into him. This frames his betrayal not just as a human mistake, but as an act of cosmic evil, a possession by the ultimate baddie. The Gospel of John even paints Judas as a common thief, noting he was in charge of the disciples' money bag and used to help himself to what was put into it. So while the details differ a bit, the verdict from the New Testament is unanimous. Judas is a traitor. He's a tragic, flawed, and ultimately doomed figure who committed the most infamous double cross in history. For nearly 2,000 years, this was the only story. But as it turns out, it wasn't. Section 2. The world of the Gnostics, a different reality. To understand the Gospel of Judas, you first have to understand the world it came from. The strange, mystical, and frankly weird world of Gnosticism. In the first few centuries of Christianity, the religion wasn't the single, organized faith we know today. It was a chaotic and vibrant marketplace of ideas, with dozens of different groups, all claiming to have the real teachings of Jesus. Among the most prominent were the Gnostics. The name comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowledge. Gnostics believed that salvation didn't come from faith or following rules, but from receiving secret, divine knowledge. And they had a completely different view of reality. Gnostics taught that the physical world we live in isn't some divine creation. Instead, it's a flawed, corrupt prison built by a lesser, ignorant god. This lesser god was sometimes called the demiurge, and the Gnostics often identified him with the God of the Old Testament. This creator, they believed, falsely thinks he's the one true God, but he's really just a cosmic jailer. Trapped inside our physical bodies is a divine spark, a little piece of the true, transcendent God who exists in a spiritual realm far beyond our own. The Gnostics saw Jesus as a messenger sent from that higher realm. He didn't come to die for our sins. He came to awaken us and give us the secret gnosis that would allow our divine spark to escape the prison of the flesh and go back home. This is the worldview that produced the Gospel of Judas. Early church fathers like Bishop Irenaeus wrote scathing attacks against it around 180 CE, calling it heresy. For centuries, everyone thought the text was lost forever. Then, in the 1970s, a fragile papyrus document, now known as the Codex Chacos, was found somewhere in the Egyptian desert. After a long and shadowy journey through the antiquities black market, it was finally pieced back together, translated, and revealed to the world in 2006. Section 3, the Gospel of Judas, the Secret Teachings. Reading the Gospel of Judas is like stepping into an alternate reality. The first line immediately sets it apart. The secret account of the revelation that Jesus spoke in conversation with Judas Iscariot. This isn't a public sermon, this is a private conversation. In this text, the other disciples are portrayed as completely clueless. They have no idea who Jesus really is or where he comes from. In one incredible scene, Jesus finds them offering a prayer of thanksgiving over bread. Instead of joining them, he laughs. They're confused and offended, asking, "Why are you laughing at our prayer? We have done what is right." Jesus replies, "I am not laughing at you. You are not doing this because of your own will, but because it is through this that your God will be praised." The text makes it clear. The God the other disciples are worshiping is the lesser creator God, the demiurge. They're stuck in the matrix, praying to the warden of the prison. But Judas is different. The text says Judas knew Jesus was from the immortal realm of Barbelo. He understood that Jesus wasn't from this corrupt world. Seeing this, Jesus pulls him aside. "Step away from the others," Jesus says, "and I shall tell you the mysteries of the kingdom." Jesus then reveals to Judas the complex cosmology of the Gnostic universe, talking about a great invisible spirit and divine beings called aeons. He sets Judas apart, recognizing that only he is strong enough to receive this secret knowledge. Only Judas truly gets it. Section 4, the betrayal reimagined, the sacred mission. This brings us to the climax of the gospel, the moment that flips the entire Christian narrative on its head. In this text, the betrayal isn't a betrayal at all. It is a sacred mission, the ultimate act of obedience. Jesus explains to Judas that he has to be liberated from his physical body. As long as he's trapped in flesh, his true spiritual self can't complete its mission and return to the divine realm. Someone has to help him shed his human form. The other disciples, in their ignorance, would never be able to do it. Only Judas, the one with the secret knowledge, can do what's necessary. And then Jesus speaks the most revolutionary line in the entire text. He tells Judas, "But you will exceed all of them, for you will sacrifice the man that clothes me." Just think about that. You will sacrifice the man that clothes me. Jesus is explicitly asking Judas to hand him over to be killed. The very act that has defined Judas as a monster for 2 millennia is reframed as the greatest favor one friend could do for another. It's the final necessary step in a divine plan. In this story, Judas doesn't hand Jesus over for silver. He does it so that Jesus' spirit can be set free. Judas becomes the key collaborator, the facilitator of salvation, not its enemy. Section 5, the scholarly debate, hero or demon. When the Gospel of Judas was first published, the headlines were explosive, screaming that Judas was actually a hero. The initial team of translators, backed by National Geographic, largely pushed this interpretation. But since then, the academic world has pumped the brakes a bit, and things have gotten far more complicated. Other scholars, like Professor April DeConnick, went back to the fragile Coptic manuscript and argued for a dramatically different translation of key passages. For instance, where the first team translated a word as spirit, DeConnick argued it should be translated as demon. In her reading, Jesus doesn't call Judas the 13th spirit, but the 13th demon. Suddenly, the picture gets much darker. In this interpretation, Judas is still set apart, but not in a good way. He's being identified with the forces of chaos. That key line, "You will exceed all of them," is read not as praise, but as a dire warning. You will do worse than all of them, for you will sacrifice the man that clothes me. From this angle, the gospel isn't celebrating Judas. It might be a Gnostic parody, mocking mainstream Christian ideas about sacrifice by having Judas perform the worst sacrifice of all. This debate still rages on. Was Judas the enlightened hero who understood Jesus' plan? Or was he a demonic figure, tricked into committing an act of cosmic destruction? The broken and ambiguous nature of the ancient text means we may never know for sure. What is clear, however, is that this text is not a reliable historical account. It was written in the 2nd century, over 100 years after the events, and reflects the theological arguments of its time, not what actually happened. Conclusion. So we're left with two profoundly different versions of Judas Iscariot. In the New Testament, he's the greedy, Satan-possessed traitor whose name became a curse. In one reading of the Gospel of Judas, he's the enlightened best friend, the only one brave enough to do a terrible but necessary thing to free his master. In another reading, he's a tragic, demonic figure used for a destructive purpose. The Gospel of Judas doesn't tell us what really happened 2,000 years ago. No serious historian thinks it gives us access to the historical Judas or what truly motivated him. But its rediscovery is incredibly important. It's a physical reminder that early Christianity was a battleground of competing stories and ideas. It proves that in the beginning, the story of Jesus and his disciples was far from settled. There were other voices and other perspectives that were ultimately silenced, condemned, and literally buried in the desert sand. It really makes you wonder, what other stories have been lost to time? What do you think? After hearing all this, was Judas a hero, a villain, or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.